Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm thrilled to be here and very excited to share some stories. Now, for those of you that follow my work a little bit more closely, you will know that this past week I spent off work and in New York City. I spent a wonderful time in New York City with my daughter and her dance team, and there was lots of dancing that happened. There was lots of sightseeing and touring around the city and all of this stuff. And I was wondering when I went into this experience if I would be totally overwhelmed because being very energy sensitive, which I know many of you are as well, it's nice to be in nature and in peaceful surroundings, right? And then when you go into a big city like that, you think, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be crazy." But here's the thing. I was very surprised with the experience and also uh, the humor, the light, and the darkness. It was like a full-bodied experience there, and I really want to share about it because I want to talk about the difference in dealing with light entities and dark entities and really just bring some information forward for all of you so that when you are moving through whatever kind of situation you are and you're feeling different energies, you know what to do and you know how to be more open to the experience, I would say. So, in order to share this insights, I need to share a little bit of my story. So, when I first was growing up, I could feel a lot of energies, entities, beings, but I couldn't see them. And I've talked about this a lot. And so, to me, the entire experience of that change in energy was so scary. I didn't understand it. I couldn't prove what I was experiencing. I thought I was crazy. And it was just so scary because when an energy of an entity or even an environment, not an, well, sometimes when you go to a certain place, there's an energetic imprint. Doesn't mean there's necessarily an entity there, but there's an energetic imprint. Sometimes I would walk into an energy imprint and feel it also. And so in the beginning, when you're first starting to open up to that sensitivity and your being is starting to become aware in the fourth dimension, it can be really overwhelming. And what's beautiful though is once you start to kind of open your eyes a little bit more in that realm and move higher up through the dimensions, you have a greater capacity to understand what's going on and either interact with what's going on, set boundaries with what's going on, um, and explore. Because really, the spiritual world is such a wonderful place to explore, but it's much easier to explore it when you have understanding. So let's talk about some light entities first. So, what's really interesting is what I noticed in New York City is it's very, very busy, lots of people, lots of things going on, lots of energies, but I found that the density energy was kept very low to the ground. And that might seem a little bit weird, but it's like I could recognize the density from about my chest down, from my heart chakra down. But from the heart chakra up, there was a surprising lightness in the air. And when I connected with my guides about it, because I could see them often, they were talking about this polarity that is very visible there to those that can see it. And so in that energy, when we were moving through different places, different theaters where there's musicals and light and joy and laughter and all of this, there was a lot of beings that were in the light energy beings. And it's almost like you could picture spirit coming through into fourth dimension to see our reality and enjoy the shows, enjoy the energy, enjoy laughing with the people. Like when we were watching one of the musicals, Aladdin, there was so much laughter, but you could also feel this energetic entity laughter as well. And it was so amazing to see, and it was so lighthearted for me. And it was beautiful to see that presence there as well, because, I kind of went into thinking New York would just be really heavy and dark. And I know 9/11 has a lot to do with that, but it was amazing to see how much the spirit world still interacts with the energetics of New York and actually holds it in that higher frequency from the heart chakra up. I was very surprised by that, pleasantly surprised. And so during my trip, often saw a lot of light entities. And the way that I see that is they're kind of like these sparks of white light, sort of like when you see in the movies when, like, let's say in Cinderella, when the fairy godmother starts to transform Cinderella's dress, and you see these sparks of light that kind of surround her, and they get bigger and bigger and brighter. I would see those sparks of light, and they were always floating higher in the chakras or above my head, beautiful sparks of light. And if I tuned into those, then I could see more of like an entity shape and this beautiful joy. Again, joy and laughter. So much joy and laughter. Now, the interesting thing too is those energies, although they could recognize me seeing them, they weren't needing to interact with me either. It was just like passing people on the street. And I found that to be so interesting too, because it wasn't like, sometimes you go to some places as a medium or an intuitive and you get bombarded by energies. And that wasn't really the case there with that. And so it was really neat. Like they could see or feel me knowing their presence, but they were totally involved in what they were witnessing and the joy and adding joy to the energy. Like it was beautiful. Now, on the other side, what I also noticed with dark entities was there was this really like in from the heart chakra lower, you could feel this sort of darker, menacing type of bully energy in the spirit world. And it was really thick and dense, but it was very, very bully like and kind of like the bully that's all talk and intimidation, but not actually harm. And again, I'm just speaking of my experience. So I understand that everybody has a different experience here, but the polarity of seeing this dark energy was really interesting to me. So there was one night, I think it was the night actually after I saw the energies. When was this? Yes, it was the night after I saw the energies in the theater of light and laughter and love and how they were enjoying the shows as well. And then that night I went to sleep. And then I woke up to this really dark, heavy presence in our hotel room. And I woke up and I was like, whoa, I don't like that. Like it made my skin kind of crawl and tingle. And I was like, no, no, you're not welcome here. And I got up to use the washroom and grab a drink of water. I think it was maybe like 3 or 4 in the morning. And I could feel it following me. And it was just this dark, menacing presence of like intimidation and trying to bring in fear and just basically to feed off the energy of fear. It just wanted to feed off fear. And I was like, this isn't happening. And so, what I did, which is what we all have the power to do in those moments, is to recognize what's happening, first of all, and be like, hey, I know you're around. You're not getting through here. I'm not going to be afraid of this presence. My body will recognize it and it'll be like, I don't like this. But once that happens, you get to stand in your power and set a boundary from your powerful heart. And whether you picture it beaming white light or you picture it beaming love energy, or you picture it just creating a force field around you, however you do that, you get to counteract that energy. And when those entities feel that they can't intimidate anymore, they disappear because they cannot overpower love energy. They can't. That's the most powerful frequency that counteracts the darkness is the love energy. And what else do we find in love? We find joy, we find happiness, we find peace, we find calm. But in essence, is being in that love energy. And so that's what I did is I got back in bed, I laid down, I had an amethyst crystal with me. I placed it on my heart space and I just thought of every wonderful, loving thing. And I just beamed it out. I just allowed my whole body to beam that energy. I could feel that dark energy just start to disappear and take off because it was getting the like, ugh, gross. No, can't do it. Can't do it. Now, here's the really interesting thing is in the case of a dark energy like that, sometimes when you beam that love energy, you actually give that dark energy what it needs, a frequency to transform into the light. So I have seen situations where I've done that and they've actually transformed. And then I got to see their true form and realize they were just lost. They were confused. They didn't know what was going on. In this case, though, this energy that I encountered in New York felt like a professional dark energy. It felt like it knew what it was doing. It felt like it had a purpose and it just wanted fear energy. But in changing my own frequency, I was able to make myself essentially untouchable, which each and every one of you can do. And it's about recognizing the differences between those energies, right? Because the same thing at the theater when I was watching the show, I got that same, like, the hairs stand on the back of my neck. But when I allow myself to ask, what is this? Then the world opens up. And for me, I'm able to see it. So I understand that that makes it a little bit easier. However, in connection with being able to see these light entities, I could also start to feel after those tingles on my neck, this presence of joy and this presence of happiness and laughter. And it was amazing. The same as when I felt that dark entity, I felt the tingles. When I felt into the energy, it was heavy, it was menacing, it was intimidating. And I was like, I don't want that. And so that's what I found was so interesting about New York was the polarity in it. But also, if you move through New York with your own consciousness and like knowing your authentic self, you can really choose what kind of adventure you're going to have. Because after that dark entity, I didn't have any other peskiness. We even went to go see the 9/11 site, the museum and the memorial. And I really wondered what that would be like. We also were on Ellis Island, where a lot of immigrants came when they first came over. They were kind of quarantined there. And on Ellis Island, I could feel a lot of heavy energy and some entities there. But in 9/11, I felt a deep collective sad. There was a very collective imprinted energy of sad. But I didn't feel any entities there at all, any lost or stranded souls. I didn't feel any of them. In fact, I was shown that they crossed quite quickly so that they cross together. And that's what often happens in mass casualty situations is they often all cross together. There's a big energy around it. Again, everybody has their own individual experience, but I found 9/11, although it had a collective sad imprint, it was also like there was so much love there and love in how they memorialized it and love in how they care for each and every soul that lost their life there, in how they have memories of them. Like there was a deep love energy around it. And so it was actually, although very sad, very loving and wholesome. And so again, this whole idea of New York, I would assumed before that it would have a lot of darkness. And although it did, it had equal parts light and it had equal parts love energy in it too. And it was just so interesting to be sort of plopped in this heavy metropolitan area with tons of people moving through, very international, lots of history, lots of highs and deep lows and everything in between. But maneuvering through that as a sovereign being and like knowing what my energy is, it was a very beautiful experience. And so the reason why I'm sharing all of this too is when we understand the differences between the light entities and the dark entities on our planet, and we recognize our own sovereignness to move through it, we recognize that as a collective, we are starting to step up in our consciousness. And as we step up in that consciousness, which we've been talking about, the more we recognize the light versus the dark, and we emit that love energy towards the dark entities, they can no longer prey on that energy of fear. And each and every one of you get to be a conduit for that love energy. And the more people that do that in cities or places that have had a lot of sadness and they transmute that energy into love energy, the more we shift the whole frequency of humanity into this higher and higher and higher and higher consciousness. And I just think that was such a eye-opening experience in that way, because to me, what I gained from all of that in understanding is that we are farther ahead than we actually think. Because when we look at the world right now, I'm generalizing here, but we think there is so much darkness and a tiny amount of the population can see the light. But I really don't believe that because for me to be able to move through those energies and feel them, they were already established energies there, right? I was plopped into what's already been established and what's already shifting. And so I was able to observe what's already shifting. And it was amazing to see how much it's already shifting. So I share this with all of you so that as you move through your experiences, no matter where you are in the world, no matter where you are, London, Tokyo, Milan, Australia, Africa, you name it, you can also deal and shift through recognizing and adding that energy to the light entities, disarming the dark entities, holding your sovereign frequency through that experience, and shifting little bits of frequency as you move through your moment. Right? As I was moving through my moment, doing little things, it's shifting little bits of frequency around me and affecting people right around me. But if everyone's doing that, it makes such a big difference. And you can see it already in New York City. You can see it. It's already starting to shift. And yes, I did see some darkness and I did see some really hard things, really, truly. So I'm not painting this utopian picture by any means, but I'm speaking very clearly of what I saw in the spirit realms, in the higher energies. Things are shifting. Your consciousness makes such a difference. And that recognition between the light and the dark and dealing with it in the way in which you can express love energy is your most powerful weapon. If I want to use a weapon, maybe I don't even want to use the word weapon. I want to use like your most powerful outlet, expression, capacity is that love energy. It's powerful and it's shifting things. It's so interesting. And you know, what's also really fun is once you step into those energies of being able to recognize the light energies and how the spirit world does still come in to be entertained by humanity in a loving way, not in a making fun of humans way, but in a loving way, enjoying shows, enjoying events that you plan, enjoying different things. It's a beautiful thing to see how much everything is connected. Everything is connected through this quantum field, through these ripples of consciousness, through the ether that connects everything. It's all connected, and we move through that all day, every day. And the more that you awaken into that, the more you add a higher frequency of capacity for everybody else to awaken into it too. So I really wanted to share that with all of you. And in hopes that maybe it will inspire you to just really stand in your power, notice what you notice, recognize it as your truth, and be intentional in how you move through your day because it makes a difference. So I'll leave that with all of you. And I want to thank you all so much, as always, for joining me. I do want to let you know that I will be releasing more spots for the Spirit Tune In and Ask questions. So depending on when you're listening to this, every Monday we release them at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So depending when you're catching this, you might be able to catch a spot in there where you can ask me some questions to ask Spirit, and I will send you a recording back. So if that feels of interest to you, you can sign up for that at avalonspirit.com under Spirit Tune In and Ask. And it's under the Personal Journey Guide section. So thanks again, everyone, as always. I sure love and appreciate all of you, and I wish you a beautiful week. Notice what you notice this week. Notice the light, notice the dark, and beam that love energy out of you because you make a difference. Have a beautiful rest of your week, everyone.